Oh, okay. So we got some more head coaching news on the way. Two new coaches just got hired for two more NBA teams. So let's talk about it. Hey guys, so my name is Leon, and today we're gonna be talking about two new head coaching hires for the Dallas Mavericks and the Portland Trailblazers. Obviously, as you already know, I think it was 2 days ago that Jason Kidd was just named the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, and the Dallas Mavericks have also hired a new GM along with Jason Kidd, Nico Harrison, the former executive for Nike. Um, and secondly, we're gonna talk about Portland Trailblazers' new head coach Chauncey Billups. Both Jason Kidd and Chauncey Billups are former NBA players. So with that being said, let's just talk about it. So yeah, um, my thoughts about the Jason Kidd hiring, I'm kind of mixed about it, to be honest with you, because Jason Kidd was the coach of the Brooklyn Nets, and he also was the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, and he had so success. It's not that his teams really missed the playoffs necessarily. I think for majority of those seasons that he was a coach of the Brooklyn Nets and of the Milwaukee Bucks. We all know Jason Kidd as a defensive minded coach, really good for the most part. It's just his offensive schemes and all that stuff and the way how his strong personality rubbed off on some of the players and maybe some of the management too was those were the particular reasons why it didn't go well for Jason Kidd as a head coach in the Brooklyn Nets and for the Milwaukee Bucks. So I'm interested to see how it's going to affect the Dallas Mavericks going forward. And with Mark Cuban, a very hands-on owner, he's going to want like results right away. And Jason Kidd, was a former player for the Dallas Mavericks. He played for them in two stints. I think he was drafted by the Dallas Mavericks, and then he came back in a trade with ironically the New Jersey now called Brooklyn Nets. And I think in 2009, forgot the year it was, but yeah. So Jason Kidd has experience working under Mark Cuban before as a player, so I'm sure there's mutual respect there. And Mark Cuban probably would not have hired him if he didn't think Jason Kidd could be the right coach for the job. I think Jason Kidd, his experience as playing as a point guard back in the days could be very influential to Luka Doncic, who's their current starting point guard. But I think Luka should play shooting guard, but that's just me. Anyways, he could help Luka really tone up his defensive skills and to kind of help Luka and learn how to play as a point guard leadership wise. Because Luka, I think, is a good passer, but there's certain things that I think Luka could improve in his game as a point guard overall. And Nico Harrison, the former executive of Nike, I think it's interesting that they hired him as GM. I'm sure the GM hire was more on player personnel and what Nico Harris's connection is to the best players around in the league who either wear Nike sneakers or who have contract with Nike. So he's, as an executive, I feel like it's similar to the Warriors hiring like a Bob Myers, for example. Somebody who was like a player agent or somebody who was outside of basketball field but not necessarily far from the field. Somebody has experience with players that could help that particular franchise going forward. So I think the Dallas Mavericks, they talent wise, I think they're okay. They could add like another shooter or two. The shooting hasn't really been good since Seth Curry got traded for Josh Richardson for the Dallas in a trade between the Dallas Mavericks and the Phoenix Suns, the Philadelphia 76ers last offseason. So I think they could add one or two more shooters. Um, Maybe they can resign Tim Hardaway Jr. I like their wings so far. I'm just concerned about the big man rotation. I always thought they played too many bigs. They have Boban, Willie Cauley Stein, Dwight Powell, Max Kleber next to Porzingis, and 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 that point we have so many bigs who are competent to play good minutes for you guys. It's hard to get all those guys minutes. So maybe stick with just two or three of those guys instead of playing all five. I think that was always a problem. Like it's good to be a big team, but you gotta have variety. I think they could use another permanent player too. Maybe they can play the first round draft pick for last year, Josh Green. So, but I'm proud of his kid. Again, another chance at head coach. Hopefully, he could learn from his being an assistant for the Lakers for the past few years under Frank Vogel, and learning from LeBron James run offenses that maybe he can be more creative on the offensive end, and maybe he can teach what he learned from his assistant days Lakers to Luca, and Luca could probably learn more from his kid. Anyways, Dallas can make the playoffs next year. Let's move on to the Portland Trailblazers hiring Chauncey Billups as head coach. Um, I think overall it's a good hiring by Portland only because I think Chauncey Billups, being an assistant for a good amount of time on the Doc Rivers and then under Tyronn Lue and the Clippers, I think, excuse me, I think this is his chance to show what he can do. And obviously, he's somebody who's endorsed by Damian Lillard, being a former player and a former point guard himself. I think not Chauncey Billups. I think Damian Lillard could learn from Chauncey Billups, and I think CJ McCollum could also learn from Chauncey Billups. You know, Chauncey Billups, before going to the Detroit Pistons, also played in Minnesota and was playing some shooting guard in Minnesota next to someone like Terrell Brandon. So he can probably teach CJ McCollum more, how to be a shooting off guard. So I think Chauncey Billups also is somebody who's somebody that can be a player's coach, somebody that gains respect from multiple players in the league, somebody who's very likable. So I think that'd be a good hire. Now we have to see how his X's and L's going to be, because I feel Chauncey Billups is going to definitely get respect from the locker room. How he's going to coach. Is he going to be more defensive minded? Is he going to be more offensive minded? So we'll see if he can kind of mix and have a variety. Steve Kerr, Derek Fisher, these are all former players, for example, were first time coaches and were former guards in the league. And for Steve Kerr, it went well. For Derek Fisher, it didn't. So I'm just bringing those examples to see basically the line where Chauncey Billups could fall. So I'm excited for Chauncey Billups. I hope Portland could make the playoffs next year. But I think the head coach is a start. But Portland still has some moves to make roster-wise. I still think they're a little bit too small. I feel like they could use at least two competent perimeter players who are between 6'6" and 6'8" that could defend multiple positions, kind of like what they had a couple years ago with Alpha Mika and Mo Harkless. So if they bring guys like that and maybe do stuff like maybe if they resign someone like a Norman Powell, have him come off the bench instead of starting him. Because that was the problem with Portland. I feel like they was too small and the defense wasn't as good as, past years under Terry Slots. And I think Terry Slots, even though he's a competent coach, a really good coach, I feel like they got tired of his voice. So maybe Chauncey can bring a fresh perspective, fresh voice in the locker room. So we'll see how it goes. I think Portland can still make the playoffs on the Chargers Bills, and if they make the right roster moves. Anyways, having said, congrats to Jason Kidd, Nico Harrison, and Chauncey Billups on, gaining employment from the Dallas Mavericks and Portland Trailblazers. So hopefully it goes well for all of them and for all parties involved. Anyways, that's the video. Thank you guys for watching so much. Thank you, thank you so much for watching. And definitely new videos are coming soon. And adios.